there.
Oh, are we streaming? Hey, everybody.
Particularly Karen.
Hi, Karen, and everybody watching.
And I'm about to go live here.
You have to be quiet, though. Okay. All right, so we're going to get started here. I care more about the people on our site. All right, we're going to wait for our other person to do his thing. Jamal here with Creator. I'm joined by the awesome basia Zamorska, an amazing stylist, hailing from London.
Hello.
Correct?
Originally, no, but I cut my fashion teeth in London, yes.
Your styling hails from London. We'll
yes.
say that. Awesome. Cool. So we're going to get into amazing topics. She's been all the world, shot with so many amazing celebrities and photographers, fashion brands, designers, you name it. So, but before all that, let's rewind and talk about where you were born, kind of all that stuff, give people some background.
Certainly. I was born in a lovely town in England called Nottingham, which is drop dead cool now. It wasn't when I was growing up, so there wasn't much to do. And I was pretty much obsessed with music and fashion from a very early age, and the two always seemed to dovetail. I did not study fashion at school or college, and I fell into styling sideways. I studied modern languages at university, and I was going to teach German and French literature at university, but that sort of went to hell in a handbasket after I started going out to nightclubs in London. I was a sponge from a very early age, and there were a few instances that I can say I reinvented myself by a haircut and by a change of clothing. So the power of clothing and its association with music has been with me ever since I can remember.
And you mentioned to me before about music actually being your passport into styling. So talk about what was your fascination with music and how that led to you being so original with your styling and building that skill up.
That's very kind. I remember when I was 5, there was a boy in the playground called Clifford Fox who was singing a song and stamping his little feet that had sandals on them, and he was wearing really uncool shorts, which young children in England do wear when they're a certain age. And
yeah, those little tight shorts.
Yeah, and I wanted to know him because he knew the same song that I liked that was in the charts at the time. And so I remember that moment from the age of 5. And so I was always drawn to people who liked certain music that I liked. And of course, clothing was extremely tightly tied in with all of that. So back when I was little in 1904, when I saw, for example, the Trogs or Mick Jagger's face close up, why was he cool? I'm sure I wasn't disseminating at that age why he was cool, but I knew I wanted whatever world these people were hailing from, I wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to create in it or somehow brush against it. I didn't think it through like this now, but being forced to look back and write about it, clearly, you couldn't stop me from going there.
So it was just like obsession. It didn't really matter if it was styling or something else, but you just wanted to be in this kind of creative energy, that world.
Yeah, and all the bands that I was drawn to when I was little all had a very strong look, and I would actually run across town to watch a music show and watch my favorite bands toss their hair and wear outrageous clothes on a TV show called Top of the Pops, which every child watched. And music magazines were purchased so that you could read about these people's lives, but also to see what they were wearing. And 3 times in my life, I walked into a barber or hairdresser with a picture of a pop star and said, I want that haircut.
People actually did that.
Which my mother didn't know about, but she wasn't too happy afterwards. Yes, it was inextricably bound.
The two together and that energy.
Yes, but it wasn't, I wasn't planning on making it my career at any point until it happened accidentally.
So what was that accidental moment where you started going, oh, okay, a little styling thing, put together looks? And
I can pinpoint it to one woman who became my first agent in London, Carol Hayes, who has a wonderful agency over in London now. And she asked me to style a video out of the blue, me having just worked in clothing stores and gone out a lot.
So that was your background. You just worked in a department store and you went to a lot of clubs.
It was actually not a department store. It was one of the first boutique stores that sold small labels, which was super important because the pop stars would come in and you would just think nothing of it and work with them because you saw them at the club that you were going to a few days later. It's a slightly longer story than I'm making it, but basically she asked me to style a video and I had no idea what to do, and I just heard myself saying yes. And it was sink or swim, and luckily I swam, and the band were the biggest band in the UK at the time, Frankie Goes to Hollywood, and it was a video called Two Tribes, and it was utter madness. And I was introduced to some of the great labels because this band were already pretty fixated on Matsuda, sadly now no longer, Yohji Yamamoto, Jean-Paul Gaultier, and they would settle for nothing less, and so I had to make it happen. It really was do or die.
You had to just get those looks, work with those people. Like
There was just the word no just didn't exist. You just had to do it.
That's crazy. So, okay, after you do that music video, then what happens next?
Then everyone wants you to make their band look as cool as this band was. And that was quite interesting because, so I sometimes say as a joke that you have no business being in a band unless you know how to lean against a wall. Or smoke a cigarette. Sadly, the latter is no longer applicable. But a lot of music labels came to me and asked me to work with their bands, and I was very fortunate to have sort of died. I just was thrown into the fire, and so my client base grew from doing that one video.
Just from that one thing, all of a sudden it was like just boom.
I didn't train, I didn't assist anybody, I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know you were allowed an assistant. I just made it happen.
So then what was your process, and I guess we'll compare between those first couple of shoots and when you started to actually get the hang of it and study all of this stuff? What were the two big things between doing it then and doing it now as more of a seasoned pro?
I think understanding that when I was given a commercial job, that you and your ego just gets hung on a peg when you walk through the door, and there's a talent to listening to what someone wants and interpreting it, which went also for the music industry. Also, bringing your X factor. Nothing to do with a TV show, to the to the table, how many cliches am I allowed? I've done one, right?
Infinite.
I brought something to the table. I'm going to pick the low hanging fruit in a minute. Really giving the client what they want, but also communicating in a way where you have someone's trust, where they really do allow you to do what you think is right, but really not. You don't want to drag someone screaming into a certain look. But there have been times where I have worked with someone who really didn't know they were going to look good in something. You go, God, you were right. And I'm not chalking it up and saying, see, I was right. It's gratifying that when you have the power of persuasion, just to say, look, see if this works. And if not, it's fine. We haven't lost anything. So it's my job on any given project to bring more than I think that is needed.
Which I keep hearing often.
Yes.
Stylist, yeah.
That's a stylist's job. Sometimes a publicist or a manager will come and hide some of it because there's stuff that I don't know about that person, which is helpful. Some people would be really quite cross about that, but I'm not, because if they know their client better than I do, that's fine. And then you work with the person, and sometimes if the celebrity or musician is so high profile and really does get to call the shots, it doesn't really matter what anyone else thinks. Or sometimes they'll say, oh, come on, what else have you got? I know you've got something hidden in that bag, bring it out. and and that's what they end up wearing. Or that extra 5 minutes that actually it's not 5 minutes, the extra 5% of the extra half an hour you spend the night before a shoot, you go through your collection or you go to one last store, and that becomes the most loved outfit the next day. That feels great because you worked your ass off, and it's what the person ended up wearing. So you do have to listen though, and if you are not trained at a fashion college like I wasn't, it does help if you have a history of art knowledge. You know your photography, history of fashion photography isn't what was in last month's magazines. Acquiring a broad spectrum of inspiration, I think, really helps immensely, even if it's not fashion per se, if it's just portrait photography or landscape or Wild West, the people that went out there and shot the first people that went out west, just to throw some examples out there.
Yeah. And so speaking about photography, how did you learn the dynamics of working with a photographer? Especially in those early days where it's like, oh, wait, so I must put clothes on people, but then I have to work with the photographer and make this whole look happen.
I was lucky, and I feel like it was super easy because I had people that became my best friends. David Levine, who shot many iconic pictures of Boy George, for example. He became a music photographer. And also another beloved friend photographer of mine, Chris Duffy, with whom I shot a lot of my early test shots. We shot the actress Rachel Weisz together. We did her first test shot when she was 14. And in those days, we just did what we wanted, really. We would sit down and come up with an idea, and I would attempt to get clothes that fit around it. But if it was just something that I could access easily and we would base a shoot around it, that was okay too, because for a freelance stylist, getting your hands on, say at the time, Azzedine Alaïa, Chanel, Dior, the best people, you had to have an in. And so their social skills really do play a huge part in becoming friends with people who will lend you the clothing for a personal project. Otherwise, you're going to have a door slamming in your face.
Because they don't know who you are.
Yeah, you have
makes
to
sense.
really build up many relationships and really keep on top of it.
So you started in the music, that was going pretty good. You expanded from there. What was it like transitioning to other types of stuff, whether it be advertising, fashion? What was that process like?
Actually, I didn't have a guiding hand for my first ever catalog shoot, which was actually with my pal Chris Duffy. And I showed up and I wanted to make these clothes look good. And again, it was another do or die situation, and we did. But then that happened to be a company that didn't send an art director to the shoot. So afterwards, I was properly guided. For example, some of the catalogs that were in the UK, Avon, for example, or Next, it was a real team effort. So everyone's contribution was just as important as the next person's. And transitioning from working with pop stars or actors and actresses to doing the commercial stuff, it seemed to me, it seems like a holiday because there's less. I'm not saying it's easier because you work damn hard and you do a lot of shots a day, but it's a whole different ball game. The commercial work is it's formulaic. There you go. It's formulaic, and therefore you can get into a groove. Whereas when you're working with a celebrity or a musician, and whom you don't know what's going to walk through that door, and you've got to be ready. And so you've got to be, you can allow yourself to be Sybil.
You really have to just okay.
Okay.
What mood are they in? The tabloid story come out.
Precisely.
Break up with somebody.
Oh, absolutely. You're touching on two relevant issues, and in those situations, a smart person hones in on the person that they really need to listen to. Any questions you may have on ultimately what you're bringing out. You have to figure out who your boss is that day, and it can be a couple of people, and if it's 2 or 3 people, you have to learn how to juggle all their needs. It may be someone wants to feature a designer. It may be someone has a favored side of their face. It might be that they have some body dysmorphia, so you have to be very sensitive about that. And heaven help us when the clothes don't fit. That's a whole other, difficult hurdle that we really have to know how to leap over.
And that's pinning and kind of doing all that
sometimes
stuff.
Sometimes it's actually just not even getting the clothes out. If you know it's not going to fit, and the showroom was kind enough to send it to you just in case, you don't get it out.
Put that to the side.
Yeah. On the other hand, your social skills come into being when you try and persuade someone that says that's never going to fit your person. Sometimes I want to say, just trust me, I think we may be able to make this work. And it does, and that's gratifying and wonderful. But again, it's that whole juggling. Being a stylist is so much more than knowing what you're doing with clothes and who did what on the runway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just people skills.
Yeah. When you're doing an editorial, when it's just for fun, when you're putting together beautiful images with a photographer, you don't have to worry about that. You just want to create the most powerful image possible. And sometimes kissing a great shot goodbye because it doesn't fit with the rest of the story, that hurts, but you do it for the greater good. I actually think I remember there was a piece in the September issue, the film with
Yes. Anna Wintour.
where a whole story gets axed. God, that hurts. So, having one or two pictures moved is actually small fry, and one gets over it.
Yeah. So obviously you did a lot of stuff in London, and then you eventually started doing stuff in the States. What were you noticing the differences, and how was that experience of kind of transition to the States?
Well, that's a really good question. I was sent here for an editorial job when Harper's Bazaar in Germany sent me over for an editorial shoot, and it was really to show old gritty New York. So of course we were in the meatpacking district before it got cleaned up. That was a hoot. The first thing I noticed was the makeup artist, who gladly I would not name and shame anyway, but the first thing they said was, what time do I get out of here tonight? And I thought, wow, that's not how we work in England.
Who's the name?
I honestly, I've forgotten.
Got to get those details.
And I was really shocked. And I thought, oh my God, it's an industry and we're going to finish on time and no one's going to sit around having a leisurely lunch and we're going to be done by a certain time. That was the first thing I noticed, that it was a lot more organized. And we seemed like it made us seem quite sloppy and much more relaxed.
Which is still kind of the case.
It's not the case in certain fields, but it stayed like that for quite some time, yeah.
And so obviously you came to New York and did more shoots, started to know people here.
Yes.
When was it that you started to kind of make your name for yourself in the New York and US scene?
I was asked to do an advertising job for the most extraordinary thing that never saw the light of day, for reasons I genuinely can't remember. But there were
what was the thing?
Supermodel dolls with Christy.
Supermodel dolls. I can see why that probably didn't make the cut now that I think about it.
I don't remember the manufacturer, but it was Christy Brinkley and Cheryl Teagues and Karen Alexander, and Christy Brinkley took me under her wing and I was her stylist for a while, and she was such good fun, a hoot, and super sweet and kind to work for. And she then introduced me to her husband, Billy Joel, who was that guy who was just a joy and again a hoot to work with. And he introduced me to Tommy Mottola, who got me to work with Mariah Carey. That
girl, yeah.
With whom I had the pleasure of working for the early period, from Muse Dream Lover for about a year and a half.
But she was at the top of her game, pretty much.
Yes, and that was a real steep learning curve, because I went on a European promo tour, and I was on my own, so I had to just pull outfits out of the bag depending on who was doing what time of day. So it was hard work, but it was great. I got to see a lot of Europe and different cultures, and learning the difference between how a prominent public figure dresses privately and publicly was interesting too.
What were some of the bigger examples of that?
For example, for a TV appearance in Germany, we went to Hamburg, Dusseldorf, and Munich. There would be a lovely long fitting gown, and then personally there would be a much cuter short little leather skirt and crop top, as was crop tops were of the moment. Because there was no social media, and we knew how to avoid the paparazzi. It would be, I don't know how people manage it these days. I mean, you can't walk out your front door without really overthinking it, I imagine. There's a few people I work with who just tie their hair back and put on a pair of sunglasses and look absolutely beautiful, and they don't have to worry about it. And there's a picture the next day, such and such getting a cup of coffee. but if one that causes people to get hysterical, it must be a real drag.
Yeah, I can imagine so. So let's talk about, I guess, the differences between you being in the industry as long as you have been, and now what it kind of looks like today.
An excellent question. Of course, social media has changed everything, and most people who are in my industry have had the discussion, over dinner or in the bar or on Facebook and falling out with people.
On social media. They're having the
Good old
conversation about social media.
Yeah, media. Exactly. Absolutely. Pop will eat itself. That's my older friends. But anyway, I was asked to dress a fashion blogger, and I didn't actually understand my position on the shoot, why I was dressing a fashion blogger. And I realized it was somebody who had been media savvy and smart enough to post pictures of themselves. And again, I really genuinely can't remember who this is, which says something. Smart enough to take selfies of themselves, post them every day. Sorry, everyone who does this, but the self-obsession required to do that every morning, I can't get my head around it. If you're not buying an outfit every day, if you somehow can afford to do this, good luck to you. If it's somebody who is rifling through their wardrobe and reinventing themselves through their existing closet and coming up with something new every day, congratulations. I think that's really cool. But the people who then have X amount of followers then get a contract with a fashion company, and they haven't cut their teeth, they haven't paid their dues, they don't have the language. On this particular shoot, we were being filmed, and one of the cameramen asked me to describe the outfit, and I asked why he hadn't asked the blogger, and I realized that the blogger didn't have the fashion language to describe
the various looks.
The outfit that I had gone to a store to pull to go to make the day go smoothly. And I was quite shocked. It's not a requirement. How does that leave us feeling? I know that a lot of photographers were quite upset when a non-photographer was given a big campaign in the UK. There was news recently of a pop star being given a campaign, a creative consultant to a big Italian house. Pop stars becoming fashion designers isn't new, as we know. I do know that a lot of people hire a talented person, and the talented person is kept hidden. And so the cachet that the famous person has is what sells the clothes. If they're smart enough to hire somebody really good, then the collection will sell. So I don't let that bother me. I actually really don't care. I don't get cross. It is what it is, and I don't know what the lifespan of those people's contracts, media pages is going to be. If they're clever, they'll learn something along the way. But I do know that a lot of my fashion historian friends and people that went to college, people that assisted and really got dirt under their fingernails, schlepping bags, or whether, they were photography assistants, going to art school, becoming an art director isn't something that you choose to do overnight. It's as daft as me saying, I think I'll be a brain surgeon now. And it is actually that silly, except lives aren't at stake.
Yes.
I sort of just laugh about it, really. But it has, a lot of good has come of it too, because great small houses do get exposure on Instagram.
Wouldn't otherwise.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. One of my favorite fake fur designers, Anna Tagliabue, who has a company called Peluche, who makes the most exquisite fake fur coats. Her Instagram page is just fine, and I'm happy for people like her who need that extra leg up that this exists. So hurrah for that.
Yeah, it's good and bad with anything.
Of course, yeah.
So what I want to do, Shamari, is if there's any questions from the online audience or online, can you see? Okay, cool. Any questions out there for you guys? Any insights? Anything interesting? They're all mesmerized. Oh, wait, they have something.
I was curious about something. Before this whole thing began, we were playing around with some images, and there was a woman. It was a magazine shoot, and she was wearing lingerie. And I was curious why you chose to put her in a pattern garment.
Shamari, you want to turn that so we can? And that's actually a good transition because I wanted to actually go over through your images.
Yeah, because I was curious. I mean, a lot of times you just a solid color, and I was just curious your rationale for making it a patterned garment.
See if I can find that image.
I'm not sure which image you're talking about. Since I did go through a phase of doing a lot of girly type magazines where they weren't wearing much, but it may have been because it fit the person really well. It may have been a fit issue. It may have been the photographer's choice where he felt that the color popped against the background, all of which are considerations when we're doing shoots.
I was thinking in terms of composition, and I'm thinking it just struck me as, why?
Yeah, without seeing the image, I'm not quite sure why, but
so what we can do is we'll just go through some of your stuff, and you can stop me and we'll comment. People have questions. I think that's a good thing to just look through, and then if hopefully we come across that image, and I think I know where it was, but I just there's so many to kind of go through. I don't know what that is. Okay. Cool. So this is personal styling, Bridget Monahan. I'll try to make these bigger. It's gonna be
okay.
Yeah, some of them are kind of low res here. Let's see. There's a lot of stuff here. That's in the book, right?
This is from the book that I styled, Ghost Town, which was an
we'll get into later.
It was a dream come true for me, because it was the whole week we were in this ghost town. I felt like I was in a song of one of my favorite musicians, Nick Cave, whose
Nick Cave, yeah.
Whose work is extremely evocative, and I felt like I put into clothing one of his songs, which was extremely gratifying. We had no boss, the photographer. It was a project, a labor of love by the photographer, so we all did what the hell we wanted. And so it was a mixture of old and new, of genuine vintage mixed with new, to look like an old pioneer family, and the cabin is real and it's still standing from the gold boom.
Yeah, that's amazing. Let's keep going here.
And the photographer was Stefan Worth.
Yep, that's that cool. So this was the one that was on the screen. So talk about this image. Obviously, this is
wonderful.
For LV, and
this was shot by two geniuses, Connie and Russell, Russell Peacock and Constance, who go by the double name of Guzman, and they, much to my joy, asked me to do the Louis Vuitton 100th centenary campaign, and about 8 designers were asked to design a Louis Vuitton bag, and Grandmaster Flash was one of the people we got to do this, and he was just an absolute joy to work with. It was just, I actually went to Macy's with him and we chose the shirt together.
Oh my God.
I just let him pick what he wanted, because it worked.
Yeah, no.
He knew what he wanted, the bagginess. I'm sure that we bought the pants there. We got a new pair of Timberlands, and I think I got the Kangol hat for him too. But he was just such a gentleman.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
Let's keep going.
that was great.
Cool. That's nice. Cool.
I was Liv Tyler.
Oh, yeah,
A
she's
young-
really young there. Yeah, I was like, wait, who's
Very
this little
young.
girl? We got to talk about this.
Okay.
So, talk about this.
This is Mariah Carey, clearly, for her Christmas album.
Which is like the biggest Christmas album in the history of.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yes, yeah.
Blimey. I didn't know. It was
She did. I just. Yeah, whatever.
okay. Mariah knew me really well by the time we'd worked together for a while, and she very sweetly bought me a Smiths DVD, which shows that she really knew where I was at, and I was so touched by that. My assistant at the time, Jackie Roach, who now works in film, we designed this one piece with Mariah's approval. The only differences were necklines, how high, where the marabou was going, and then we got a dressmaker to make it for us. I think we were pretty much working against the clock on that, as these things go. And it was a red stretch fabric, nothing fancy, but we wanted it body hugging. We wanted it to say Christmas, but we didn't want it to look corny. And then putting a big ass belt with it just sort of topped it off. And she is actually up to her thighs in real snow here. And there's another picture somewhere else where she's with some elk, or is it moose? Shoot, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think
can't
that's
remember.
somewhere in there.
Yeah, but and it really was snowing, and it was bloody freezing.
Yeah. So this is just
Oh,
Monica Lewinsky.
that was really great. That was a George Holtz special. Working with him was a joy. We took Monica out to the meatpacking district, and I think it had just rained. I think that's 14th Street or Gansevoort, and she's wearing my coat that was a fake fur-lined Topshop special before Topshop, yeah. And I threw it on her, and she just did that, and we got it.
Dude, it's so crazy how this.
That's a great show.
Yeah, her makeup was extraordinary. That was Billy B.
Cool. All right, now this is a crazy one here.
Oh yes, that was.
Did you actually style him, or did he just show up in big
No,
splash?
actually, I went to the hotel to meet him and Sharon, with whom I subsequently also worked. And I customized a shirt for him, which I'm actually going to auction for my animal charity. In case there are any Aussie fans out there, please do get in touch. The money will go straight to Infinite Hope Animal Rescue. And I painted some. I had my own line of T-shirts at the time, actually an old one of which I'm wearing right now. And I hand painted a bunch, and then I just
That would look weird if I was like looking down there. So
no, it's okay. Actually, the first one I was in a really bad mood, and it was the first T-shirt I ever painted. Actually, just said "fuck off."
So his T-shirt just says.
Yeah,
Oh.
and I painted a bunch of red stuff, some crosses, and then he chose one that had some crosses which are actually off camera, and then we decided to show his camera left shoulder. So as it was on him, I slashed it with my scissors, and I opened up the slashes to see more of that blue tinge tattoo, but the shot that was chosen shows it slightly more covered up. But yeah, I still have the T-shirt and I have the cover, and they're going to be auctioned together.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And this is that Mariah shot.
Oh yeah.
This is the larger one, or smaller, whichever you want to call it. Let's see if there's some other little goodies in here.
Goodness.
Tyra, somebody else.
That's more half naked styling.
Yeah. Was this what you were talking about? No.
No. Oh, there's Sharon.
Yeah, Sharon, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry if it's blurry, everybody. We'll have to put these up next time. Sigourney
She was
Weaver.
wonderful. Oh, I really enjoyed that. That was Jason Bell shooting. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And that was a long time ago.
So I think we have another one of these open. Oh wait, this is Melania Trump. Sorry, we should throw this out there, people.
Okay.
She actually styled Melania Trump.
Okay.
Am I even saying her name right?
Melania.
Melania. Who
Melania.
cares?
So this was
Sorry.
another
supporters. I'm
George
sorry.
Holtz shot, and it was for FHM magazine. And as anyone who's ever picked up a copy of FHM or any such magazine knows, this is a fairly standard picture for them, girly. And the reason actually that this twosome was chosen it's actually not a print, it's pattern, and it was by an extremely talented lingerie designer called Lee Bentivoglio, and it just fit perfectly, and the colors were pretty. The photographer and I and Melania agreed that it was perfect. I'm sure the art director was there. Everyone was happy, and so it was shot. Not too much thought went into it, as long as it fit. And the most important thing was that she was comfortable and happy in it. And full stop.
Yeah, I think we have one more that we can show as well. Let's see. Here we go. Oh, we're getting some music stuff here. There we go. That'll be cool. Let's see if you can find something interesting.
Oh, Bridget Moynihan's wedding.
So, you styled her wedding?
Yeah, well, we did it together. She ended up wearing a Jane Dell dress that was made specially for her, and she never doesn't look gorgeous. It's not exactly hard work. So I've been working with her for a long time. She's lovely. If you go back up to there, one more. This was Rachel Weisz during her first ever test shoot. And we went out to a disused airfield and shot her as a girl pilot. So we chose the area, the location as our inspiration. Yeah.
Cool. Let's see if there's any more.
Oh, Christina Ricci.
Yeah.
She was lovely. Oh, well, the English people will know who the man on the right is. That's Alan Bates, one of the most revered actors. Actually, a lot of Americans will do too, but he's just more revered in the UK. Sadly, there's no more. He was doing a Broadway play at the time. And that was an honor. And often people say, what image represents you most? That's close to one of my favorite ones.
Oh. And why is that?
Because there's a touch of rock and roll about it. Because if I can throw that into the mix, I will.
Yeah, it's just kind of a cool look, not really trying hard.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's actually something that happens when I'm working with bands. You know, not all bands can pose well in front of the camera because they're musicians and they weren't born posing. And sometimes it's actually really interesting just teaching them with the younger ones that don't have this innate sense of the difference, putting your finger in your jeans pocket, or as we say, breaking your hip. You can teach that a little bit on set, but a lot of people are just goddamn cool and they don't have to do much. And then when I here in the States, I got given a lot of young bands, and I would look at them and think, oh, Jesus, how am I going to get through this? And I was always really grateful when people knew how to, if they responded to the clothes they're wearing. I actually get great joy when people put something on and they stand differently. Their relationship to the camera is different, and they will find a wall to lean against, or they will fold their arms, or just put their finger in their jeans pocket, and immediately there's an element of cool. And sometimes we have to drag that out of people, so it's always great when it's already there.
Yeah, it's interesting that you're a big part of that, as opposed to in collaboration with the photographer.
Of course,
people seem to think that will maybe be coming from the photographer, but it's interesting that you were also mixing it up as well. It
depends on the photographer. Sometimes the photographer really doesn't want anyone in his face and wants just the subject and his camera there, and you find that out pretty quickly.
Just get out the way.
And other times, there are a few people who actually want silence on set, which is really crushing. But other people really want you to help them out. So I can whisper in the photographer's ear, have that guy do this, and that'll be done. So it's not, so the ideas aren't coming and bombarding them. It just comes from
you might want to bring it back this way. We'll just leave this one up. Cool. Any questions there for Garen or anybody? Live or?
I have a question.
Yep, go ahead.
When you're styling, is it more cerebral for you or more instinctual?
Just so I can rephrase that
for the from like when you started to now.
What a great question.
So the question was, for those who can't hear, is it more cerebral or instinctive? Correct.
Yeah.
Gosh. Most of the time it's instinctive, but if I'm allowed to be cerebral and take that ball and run 3 parks away to the furthest one away, I will. Two photographers, again, Constance Hansen and Russell Peacock, aka Guzman, are 2 photographers who want me to do that. They want to create a whole story behind it, and they will actually take a paragraph from literature and say, can we dress this? And actually one of my dreams, unfulfilled, and I will get to it, is very much tied up with characters in literature. You know how when a film comes out, there tends to be a glut of that film inspired shoots in magazines. Say, I'm trying to think of a very stylized film or TV series, say Mad Men. There was a lot of that's a really good example of something highly stylized that was a great topic for people to put in their magazine. So if when you're doing that, it has parameters
that are already set because people have seen the television show.
Absolutely. And for me, a dream would be to sort of go through a bunch of my favorite books and pick out a heroine who hasn't been represented anywhere in a film. And my favorite writer, Martin Amis, is a really good example, except the film has been made and I can't look at it because it will ruin things for me. So that, yeah, I'm not given the chance to be that cerebral very often, or sometimes I just do it to amuse myself. Yeah. Or sometimes we're doing something just really nice and fashiony, and amongst ourselves in the team we'll bandy stuff around that will bring it up a notch just to have fun. Because the day goes by quicker then. Yeah. Yeah.
Has it changed from when you started to now?
Another really good question. When money is involved, you're not really paid to be cerebral unless
sense. Don't think about anything. Just do what we paid you to do.
Yeah, basically. And also, I was really naive. I remember standing, using the payphone in London, calling Vogue magazine and saying, I'd just done a shoot, and would they look at it? Oh God, I knew so little.
Did you get through?
I can't remember who I got through to. I'm sure it was an intern. But she politely told me that they don't take submissions. I didn't bloody know. And so, I remember when I started to learn about the magazine world, when I did get freelance jobs for certain magazines, we don't do this, we never do this, we do this, we have this color in this month, and we are not allowed to do them. We have to feature this designer once a year. And that was an absolute shock to me. I didn't know that money was quite so involved, and I didn't realize politics was so involved. So I really don't understand some of the covers that have come out in the last year or so featuring certain people. It's completely beyond me. I can only assume that it's about commerce.
Selling issues. Cool. Any online questions for anybody?
No, they're just enamored.
They're just watching. Okay. So any questions here? If
You're
not,
so
I wanted
kind.
to probably take the last piece and just kind of talk about some of the books you brought, and I guess perfect. Oh, sorry.
Well, is there a difference with like doing business between like record labels? Because I saw you had Mariah Carey, you worked with Grandmaster Flash, so it's like, is that a different world versus like editorial, like doing it? You know what I mean? Like, is it like what's the politics and the difference? And
Let me just repeat that
really
for our online viewers. Are you saying,
It's a great question.
is there differences between styling in the music industry versus styling in editorial, magazine, fashion?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like,
Or just magazine, we'll say, in the politics.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know.
Yes, there is a huge difference. You have many masters when you work in the music industry. Having said that, the music industry really suffered huge cutbacks, and so budgets are smaller, and a lot of people in my position end up losing money working on that, but you do it as a favor for a friend, and or because you think the person is cool. But that's a whole other kettle of fish. And also I encourage people not to work for free when they can get support to actually get compensation for it. However, yes, I do remember working for. I actually did a band called Total, who were one of what he was called. Sorry.
Bad Boy?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, when I was jobs for Bad Boy Records, and I remember coming into Puff Daddy's office, dragging a huge bag of clothing with me for, and the girls who were.
And then he made you go to Brooklyn and get a bagel.
Actually, I don't mind telling this story, but I do remember him sitting in his chair saying, "Where are the clothes?" And I said, "If you give me a moment to unpack the body bag that I'm dragging single-handedly behind me, I'll show you them." And I was fearless. I just couldn't be bothered to not be. And it was glorious because there is most stylists out there know when you're faced with a tricky client or a difficult one, or one that's demanding in a way that is somewhat unnecessary, you can figure out. You just use a lot of fashion terms, you sort of blind them with science, which a lot of my buddies out there will completely understand what I'm talking about. Karen Schickman, Joe Della, Christina Breslin, and the rest. I remember explaining what I was going to do for the three girls who weren't present in the room. It was just me and him having a meeting. And then
So it was actually his decision on what they were going to wear?
Oh, yeah. And I laid out outfits.
Makes sense.
Yeah. I laid outfits out on the floor and I said, well, it's all the same feeling. There's a cohesiveness to it, but each girl is going to be allowed to bring out her personality. And he completely disagreed with me. And then when we had the meeting with everyone else, I realized that he was actually repeating what I said, but he changed the words.
Oh, did he? Nice. Did he?
Because the word cohesive came out of his mouth. So I thought, oh gosh, he does agree. And it was a lovely experience. They were wonderful girls. It was one of the best shoots ever. So much fun. And I realized then you just have to just shut up and get on with it sometimes. And so, yes, politics were there right from the get-go, in a way that they're not in the magazine world, just because, I mean, that's actually quite an extreme example because of the power of one person. But most record labels, they do it by committee. There'll be an art director, and a manager and a publicist, all of whom have their say.
Two questions. I'm sorry.
No, please go ahead.
Like with that situation, I'm glad you gave that example because I'm like a huge fan of that group. So I know. So I'm like, oh, cool. So let's ask more questions about that. So with that situation, like, did you have to do I mean, I don't know how you work mentally, like how you prepare yourself mentally.
I'm going to tell you that.
So, like, how do you mentally prepare and say, okay, this group total, this is what I have in front of me. I have to get these pieces for these girls. Was it like an assignment for an album cover? Was it for a show, a tour? Like, how?
That's a great question. We did a video and we did posters. And I think there was a record sleeve. And I have spare posters. I'll get you one.
Okay.
Yeah, I have them in my archive. I had them in white tanks. I'm not going to refer to them in the non-PC way, especially not.
Yeah, gotcha.
Especially in this atmosphere. But I
will. No, I'm just kidding.
And one of the girls was wearing P. Diddy's big ass platinum cross that weighed an absolute ton. She was allowed to wear it for one shot. But I was...
One shot. That chain back.
But in the day for instant gratification on the internet and YouTubing and looking and Googling something or just looking at a poster of even a film poster, I was made to go and see one of the only two films I've ever walked out on because I was given a reference. And when
wait, what was this film?
The Matrix. Oh yeah, so not my kind of film. Yeah, so I'm sorry.
Well, this is over.
Oh shit.
Guys, this is great. Basia.
So I sat there with my assistant, and when the goop The reason why I was made to go see it was because in one of the pre-pro meetings we had before I actually went out and started prepping and shopping for the girls, I actually had coats made for them. I copied the big matrix coat, you know, the big, it may have been leather. Was it? Who was wearing it?
Yeah, Neo, Trinity, both of them. Yeah.
Okay. So
she's like, I don't care.
Whoever it was. And I just remember I had to walk out of the film when the green goop started falling on what's his name's face, Keanu Reeves. I was like, I'm sorry, I can't watch this. It's not my kind of movie. And I thought, I've seen the coat. I get it. This is what. And then so we just went and had dinner and did quick sketches of the coat. Handed it to the wonderful person. I think it was Ron Horner who made them for me, and we did them we did little differences, and the girls absolutely loved them. They looked so great and hot and badass in them. They were just adorable, and just you know, powerful looking in them. And once the wind machine got on those 3 coats, and you know, the power of having 3 girls in that coat rather than just one was just wonderful. So that was, I remember in particular the stills shoot of it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we did a video. I can't remember. It's I've been doing a lot of memory dredging, but you really picked a great one because, and I had a time limit. I had a budget to stick to, which was a nightmare. But we did it. Yeah. And they took me under their wing. They were just great. And whatever they're all doing now, I need to look them up. I send them a big ass kiss.
All right. So we're starting to get tight on time. So what I'll do is I just want to kind of go over some of your books and I guess some of your stuff that you mentioned that was really good for people to know about styling and how you think. So I guess talk about some of these books and why you think they're important.
Okay, this one that's now your book.
Yes, so it's my book actually.
Chris Killip is one of my biggest influences. I worship the ground he walks on, he has some really iconic images which are based around the north of England and people who used to gather coal from rubbish tips for money. And this picture in particular, I am just in love with. And
you guys here will be able to see it after. I was mostly doing it for the camera.
I read an interview with him recently where everyone was thinking, oh, the poor child, no money, he's crying. And apparently he's just cold. So that's a whole other chapter on stories behind pictures. But anyway, I think it's a beautiful image. And he's one of my heroes.
And that's Chris Killip.
Chris Killip, yeah.
Book is called 55? Or
it's actually part of a Faden series of photographers. Yeah,
gotcha. Cool.
A baby one. I picked up a British costume booklet. You had to buy tea and collect cards that came with it and stick them to the description. And this is just a joy rather than just the dryness of a fashion history book. This just makes it fun if, you know, a youngster is wanting to learn.
And I guess talk about how you kind of started from just being random to really digging in. I mean, you're getting in here with some of the stuff, styles and looks and garments and fabrics. What is that process? How did you start the education piece of styling?
I've never been asked that, but I can tell you it's from going to the National Portrait Gallery in London and being so close to some portraits of the kings and queens, in particular a portrait of a very famous portrait of Richard III, some very famous pictures, portraits of Queen Elizabeth, and some Van Eyck's, where you can almost touch the lace and you feel the folds of the velvet. It's just, I wanted to understand how that fabric was available then. So that threw me into my passion for fashion history, thanks to my mother for dragging me around art galleries when I was a kid.
And you think that helped you tremendously in terms of styling and language of the garments?
Oh, absolutely. And also back then, a portrait gave so much information about who that person was in society, what their standing was. There were lots of little hidden, on the face of it, hidden details, but really spoke volumes about the way a person might be holding a ring, or the way their hands were positioned, or perhaps a prop, and all that meant. So that made me really read all about that.
Dig into that, get obsessed.
And then on the sort of the other side of that, this was this great book by Dick Hebdige called Subculture from 1979. Was I working in fashion then? I had barely started. And this was just an eye-opener to me, the fact that there was a function of subculture. And I mean, one of the chapters is called Hipsters, Beats and Teddy Boys. I mean, really, this is, the notion of this is timeless, even though if you wanted to add your own chapters to this, there's a lot more to add right now. But the fact that people wanted to adhere to a certain quote unquote tribe, which I did myself by cutting my hair, and I wanted to look like a certain singer, Susie from the Banshees. I just wanted to be part of that. And so this book really goes into the socio-psychological meaning of all of that.
And a big part of that obviously is style and clothing.
Yeah,
so knowing all the different
absolutely.
subcultures and what people want to look like and dress. Yeah, it's very
Yeah,
cool.
and the fact that there were uniforms, and my sister grew up as a skinhead girl, which meant that you had your hair shaved very close, and you wore a certain kind of fabric, and skinhead boys in particular had their boots, Doc Marten boots, with a certain amount of holes. And the wonderful photographer Nick Knight has done a whole series and a book about these people. But they were around when I was growing up, and it was amazing. And they looked intimidating, and there was something sick there. And so it was so bizarre that these people who were, I think, saw themselves outside of society, all had a very strict uniform. So I'm fascinated by all of that. And also, I will say my most inspiring photographs are probably of rock stars. Actually, not all rock stars by any means. What am I saying? But in particular, Nick Cave, of whom there is not a bad picture. He's my all-time love. And let me see, one particularly great image of him. Just two, for example, right there. There are so many of him, it's impossible to pick them out. Apparently, there is a poster in here. My friend sent me this via email, and in here, oh, there we go. This is just gorgeous. So, I mean, it's a white shirt and braces, or you call them suspenders. I still can't call them suspenders. It's by Bledin Butcher, and he did a whole book. There are many photographers that have done great pictures of him, but this book in particular is a delight. So Nick Cave's look has influenced me massively for a lot of bands I've styled, and actually for my own sense of style. I've caught myself kind of going, oh my God, you look like you want to be Nick Cave as I'm leaving the house, and I admit it. And then Nick Waplington was also a very big influence on me. partly because this was shot. This was a family that he befriended, and he just shot some very gritty, arresting images. And I based a lot of my early test shoots on a feeling that I got from these pictures. So to translate the feel that this book gives you into, say, 6 pictures is quite, I can't easily describe that process, but we managed it. I don't sadly have that shoot anymore, but I found this amazing. You'll notice that not many of my books of influence are actual fashion books, but I have a whole stack of them, you know, of the various wonderful pictures that Vogue have brought, books that Vogue has brought out. The Metropolitan Museum had their last exhibition is so worthwhile. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't. Been behind the computer.
The Manus Ex Machina, I went 3 times and it was glorious. I don't do too well on just traditional, pretty lifestyle kind of work, but I do it for money. It's just not something that inspires you. I suppose it's like being a writer and doing what you have to do to keep a roof over your head. It doesn't mean it's not pleasant. It just means that it doesn't really spark you. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then we'll talk about this last one. So this is a book that you actually styled, which I think is great. It's called Ghost Town, photographed by Stefan Worth.
Stefan, yep.
Stefan Worth. And talk about this. This
was a labor of love and the brainchild of Stefan. He talked about it.
The thing about this book is funny is there's like no styling in it. It's all like nude figures forms. So I'm like, what did you style?
There's some styling. Look, she's wearing a hat.
Okay, there you go. That one photo.
She's wearing a hat. Oh, that one's definitely not clothed. All right, let's find the clothes.
Here she's throwing off clothes.
All right, let's find it. There we go. Ta-da. Okay. So this was a real labor of love of Stefan's, and we talked about it for a long time, and he waited until I was able to do it, which was extremely flattering. And we went out into the middle of